Welcome to episode 104 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. In the Rebirth, all systems are under review, as are all assumptions about who we are and who we can be. One of the assumptions that was challenged for me this week was one of gender roles. I was driving along when a country song came on. There was a man telling his baby girl that he hoped she would be just like her mother, who modeled perfect patience. He said that the baby girl could always run to him, but she'll always have to look at her mother to learn how to be a lady, which is the title of the song. The father told the little baby girl that she could always count on him to make her laugh, but the mother would be the one who could solve all the emotional issues that would surely come up in her life. Here's the kicker. He said, "She'll hear you, she'll hold you, and she'll help you through. She'll fix you, and me too." I thought at first that this must be a really old song. The fact that the father only promised to make the daughter laugh and explained that her mother would do the rest of the work of shaping and managing her world seemed so outdated. The suggestion that the mother's role is to fix the daughter and the husband is pretty crazy. This had to be something that would have made sense a long time ago. The song came out in 2020. Aside from the fact that the mother is completely overtaxed, having the sole responsibility of raising this child as well as fixing her husband, I think that the father is selling himself short. He has preemptively declined to do the actual work that would lead to his growth and expansion. He has admitted that he knows that he's only good for a laugh and that the mother is going to have to fill in all the gaps that are left, which is pretty much everything. He is also declaring that he won't be working on himself. Any progress that he will be making as a human will be his wife's work. He is also telling the daughter what her role will be moving forward. He is invested in the daughter becoming a carbon copy of the mother, and he has defined her role as a woman once she grows up. He is telling her that she is responsible for the outcomes for both her children and her partner. This is more emotional baggage than anyone should have to carry. In the rebirth, we will not be limited to the antiquated roles that were created by others and are perpetuated by the culture, as this song is attempting to do. We also are not responsible for anyone else's work. That is theirs to do. No, we will all be working on becoming complete expressions of ourselves. We will not shrink down or excuse ourselves from any part of the human experience. We are here to feel all the feelings and learn all the lessons. This cannot be done if we hide in a box that defines who we can be. And when the mother alone carries the emotional weight for everyone in the family, no one will emerge healthy and whole. We are here to become healthy and whole. We are here to face any and all challenges that come our way and do the work that pertains to us. We can all create an environment in which the people we love are safe, secure, and ready to face their own challenges, but we cannot do the work for them. Being in a family unit is such a fertile ground for working through our challenges and healing our past wounds. But the chance of this happening when we split the work by old-fashioned gender roles, where the men do the physical labor and the women do the emotional labor, is greatly reduced. And who are we kidding? Women, in their originally designed roles, did plenty of physical labor, in addition to being the CEOs of their family. Now it's time for men to have the full experience of being human. There is no reason that they can't be capable of the emotional work that women have traditionally performed. There is no reason that they cannot reap the same benefits that women do as a result of their efforts. Let's work together towards everyone seeing themselves as limitless in their capacity to grow and enjoy all the experiences that life has to offer. The world will be a much better and more interesting place. This week, the number of people who have died of COVID-19 surpassed the number of people who died during the 1918 pandemic. We are now around 680,000 deaths in the U.S., while 675,000 people died in the U.S. in the 1918 pandemic. We have hit that number with COVID-19 earlier in the pandemic than they did in 1918. Obviously, there are many more people alive now than 1918, so that skews the comparison. But back in 1918, they didn't have 3 vaccines to choose from to mitigate the damage. Even though we have multiple free options to bring this to an end, we are not doing so. It is clear that those who will survive and thrive in the future are those who are adaptable to ever-changing conditions. We can't get stuck in our thinking or our political positions and miss opportunities to make the moves that will ensure a healthy future. But many people are firmly entrenched in a belief system that does not allow them to take advantage of the vaccines that they are being offered. There is a certain amount of pride that they have about being unmasked and unvaxxed. It seems to make them feel more powerful. And going out into the world breathing and coughing on anyone and everyone around them has taken on the sort of feel as those people who need to strap on weapons to go to the grocery store. It must feel like a weapon they have against others. These are wild times. People sense that things are changing rapidly, along with their fear of what that may mean for them, makes them feel that they need to reinforce themselves with some sort of extra power. Of course, all of this is done while they also tell you that they are protected by God. It's weird that the most religious are often the most fearful, which seems antithetical. When people are feeling fearful, they tend to need someone to blame those feelings on. They need the other. The other is anyone who is not exactly like them, someone they have not taken the time or had the opportunity to know well enough to realize that they have much in common. Some professions can only exist if there is a heightened sense of fear of the other, that feeling of us versus them. We talk a lot about the need for empathy, the marker of those at the higher levels of spiritual awareness. What is complicated about the world we live in is that an abundance of empathy would make it impossible to be in a line of work that is predicated on the us versus them paradigm. What would those be? Well, the military would be a good example. Service members have to be trained to circumvent their empathy when faced with danger. They are steeped in a culture of us versus them. They are taught to align with their immediate group and to consider anyone outside of that group to be a potential threat. They have to be trained to feel comfortable with killing the other should the situation warrant that response. That flies in the face of empathy. Empathy goes against being successful and possibly even staying alive in that line of work. When someone in the service returns to civilian life, it must be difficult to not transfer the need to find them in the new world they inhabit. Returning to the world they came from must feel disturbing. They don't know who the other is, but their brain is conditioned to think that their very survival is dependent on figuring out who that is and being ready to respond. It's like the saying, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. This same conditioning is problematic for law enforcement. They are heavily dependent on us versus them. They are, in their minds, the good guys, and everyone else is a potential bad guy. Hammer, nail. There are other professions where empathy can be debilitating, and healthcare work must be one of them. If you truly took in and felt the anguish of everyone you are treating, everyone who is having the worst day of their lives ever, you'd have to bail by lunchtime. You can't engage your empathy to a degree that you melt down with each new person and story you encounter. This is not to say that healthcare workers don't have feelings. It is more to the point that we think they shouldn't have any feelings. In the early days of the pandemic, healthcare workers were inundated with COVID cases without any benefit of the knowledge that has since been amassed about how the virus works and how to protect ourselves. We had no vaccine and no real way of knowing if and when we would. The healthcare workers put their lives on the line to attempt to heal and save everyone they could, everyone who came through those doors. It was all on them. Then we got the vaccines, which should have been a game changer for our healthcare workers, but in many ways it has gotten worse. Those who refuse to be responsible by protecting themselves and others have decided to still make it the sole problem of the healthcare workers, and have even adopted an attitude of antagonism towards those whose job it is to heal people. They are angry with the people who are tasked with saving them when they themselves couldn't be bothered to do the bare minimum to keep it from getting to that point. There have been efforts of those who are feasting on ridiculous theories of how to treat the virus, efforts to dictate how the medical profession should treat them, wanting to force them to use treatments that have already been proven to be ineffective. Those who defy all accumulated medical wisdom of how to get through this pandemic in one piece have decided that this is a classic us versus them situation. The them is everyone who is pro-protection or pro-healing. It defies logic. I still can't understand why those who do not believe in science or what the medical community is telling them continue to show up at hospitals. And they forego an approved vaccine for an experimental treatment. The cost of a vaccine, depending on which brand you receive, is anywhere from $10 to $40 to be fully vaccinated. The cost of monoclonal antibodies is over 50 times that, at $2,100 per dose. It defies fiscal reasoning. The power of this need of ours to live out this us versus them dynamic is greater than our ability to reason. To cling to this mindset strips us of our empathy. The true battle, as always, is between us and our human frailties. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. I hope this finds you happy and healthy and able to keep your need for protection and your need for joy in balance. This is going to be a long haul, so find peace and happiness when you can. You're going to need it. You can always let me know how you're doing by emailing rebirthrev@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. We can be found on all the podcast apps, all the music apps, and full episodes play on YouTube and our Facebook page. It helps others to find us when you rate and review the episodes. Until next week, figure out who you see as the them in your life. Examine the instances when your empathy is challenged. Get vaccinated if you haven't already, and wear a mask. And support everyone in healthcare. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe and expansive in your thinking.